afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a true privilege to continue this very exciting panel, especially following Carlo's excellent keynote, where basically he already covered most of the subjects that are relevant for the Rail Baltica project, and for that matter, for most transport infrastructure projects of today and tomorrow. But let me, as Jirts was emphasizing, give you a little update on how do we, at Rail Baltica, how do we look at the issue of innovation and digitalization. This Shakespearean question maybe need not to be posed after the presentation of Carlo Borghini, but nevertheless, a few factors to consider also with regard to the Rail Baltica project, whether to digitalize or not, whether to innovate or not. Should we build a simple, conventional, somewhat conservative railway, a frugal railway, or should we rather aim at something that is ready for tomorrow, ready for 10 years after today? And in this, we should consider three important perspectives. Unlike many other projects across Europe and worldwide, Rail Baltica has the luxury of being a greenfield project. So obviously, we have this historic opportunity of building a smart digital railway from the outset, rather than building something that is extinct at its inception. So in this point, we have to fully utilize this unique opportunity of having a greenfield infrastructure. Second, with regard to the future perspective, we have to be able to forecast the technologies which will be commonplace in 10, 15 years. Carlo surveyed many of these technologies. We are keeping stock and consistently benchmarking on what relevant technologies and all different aspects involved in both delivering the project and in the future in operating the infrastructure, what will be the commonplace technologies. At the same time, we have to be aware of what other technologies will be developing in parallel, and to make sure that Rail Baltica is complementary with those technologies, ranging from the Hyperloop that was mentioned yesterday a few times, obviously anything to do with automated operations, road electromobility and automated vehicles, drone technologies, industrial Internet of Things, and other elements. Third important factor, again, on the same example of sending a man to space, it is not so much about the symbolic nature of a man on the moon, but rather the innovation spillovers that triggers in the wider economy. If you take apart your iPhone, most of you have in your pockets, most of the technologies that are involved in actually putting together this one commercially super successful product have been developed by space agencies, military agencies, and other public institutions that had been ahead of the curve on the front lines, on the innovation frontiers, to be then subsequently commercialized by the private sector to generate new adapted applications for every one of us. In the same fashion, Rail Baltica should serve as a platform for these wider innovation and digitalization spillovers. And then on the other side of the equation, is that prohibitively expensive? Is it something that shouldn't be considered because it's too costly, as opposed to the idea of building a simple railway? Two factors to be considered. One, again, is that infrastructure projects of this caliber should not only be viewed in terms of their immediate capex expenditure. Rather, given the transformational nature of infrastructure projects such as Rail Baltica, one has to take into account the secondary economic benefits, all of the induced and catalytic effects, ranging from the job creation, regional integration, connectivity and mobility possibilities, and different catalytic effects on the one hand, and on the other hand, oftentimes these innovative solutions, they do not even add to the initial capex. And even if they do in a marginal sense, they're more than compensated for in terms of the future reductions of operational expenses over the life cycle of the infrastructure. The fourth industrial revolution is here. It's unstoppable, it's uncompromising, so we either get on board or we fall behind. In this little loop of innovation, we've tried to summarize some of the key areas on which we will be focusing as we produce a more thorough roadmap for Rail Baltica digitalization. And on the left side of this loop, you have the infrastructure side, and on the right side, you have more of a user or service perspective. When it comes to smart project delivery, this was a subject that was also touched upon in one of the previous panels. Obviously, we will make sure that in our supplier market studies, especially for the components that will go into the implementation of the project, we will make sure that we identify those innovative products or alternative product lists that we can use. And again, judging from the point of view of their balance in terms of the life cycle cost efficiency. It will be the subject of the next panel, and my colleague Raitis will expand on Rail Baltica vision in this area. But clearly, we will take full advantage of BIM. We have excellent in-house expertise that's being developed. We will use this expertise not only for design and construction phase, but hopefully also set the stage for a very extensive use of BIM in the future asset management. And when it comes to, just go back to the previous slide. When it comes to smart infrastructure management, again, very few things to add to what Shift to Rail Chief already described. Of course, we are thinking in terms of ERTMS. Should it be level 3 or should it be level 2, or should we be slightly more ambitious, especially in light of the prospects of automated train operations? GSMR versus LTE versus the emerging satellite technologies is, of course, a very interesting dilemma looking forward 10 years down the line in the choice of the communication system as the other plank of ERTMS, and clearly we are taking a very keen interest in these subjects. Something that also obviously popped up during the little survey before this panel, anything to do with condition-based maintenance, predictive maintenance, preventive maintenance, any kind of monitoring of parameters, of parameter performance, parameter degradation, in order to be able to react before something bad happens or before parameters degrade to cause any kind of traffic management issues. And clearly that's one major area where we would focus on, especially during the implementation stage. And now on the service side, on the user perspective, of course, the most important part, and this is the reason why we are building this railway infrastructure, is the future passenger experience. The future passenger, the youngsters of today, will be very demanding customers. They will want a no waiting, effortless planning, real-time journey information, an integrated, intermodal, digitally planned travel package. It's already becoming a reality today. Mobility as a service, as one of the concepts, it will be the norm tomorrow. So we have to be prepared. Our stations should be smart for passengers. They should serve as multimodal, innovative, digitally connected hubs to make sure that the passenger of tomorrow is able to travel across a very complex intermodal travel chain without any problems, fully seamless. Same on the logistics side, which is an equally important component for the development of Rail Baltica. We already see that the logistics industry is requiring ever more complex, just-in-time logistics chains. Supply chain management is becoming a very digitalized area. We have seen some of the world's most advanced terminals already being fully equipped with smart cameras, smart data monitoring, smart sensors, automated operations. If you take, for example, the London Gateway new port run by DP World, very few people work in these facilities because they're fully automated, and that's certainly the future and should be the future also here in the Baltic. And finally, again, returning to the subject of innovation spillovers, we want to engage with disruptive startups providing disruptive innovations. We're certainly not on the conservative side when it comes to how both the passenger and the freight value chain of tomorrow would look. The value chain needs to be fully digital, thereby also creating a platform for multiple catalytic effects of industrial and innovation spillovers. And finally, just to give a quick briefing on where do we stand with regard to producing Rail Baltica innovation and digitalization guidelines. We are already working on the terms of reference, and I'm very pleased that Shift to Rail is one of our partners. We couldn't ask for a more competent partner, and somewhere down the line we will of course also engage all of our key stakeholders. It is very important at this stage to also involve the future users, both again on the passenger side and on the freight side, so that we can take these insights and integrate them in the design process. So at the end of the day, we deliver a digitally connected infrastructure which is adapted to the needs of the future users. And we will launch a tender in Q3 of this year. Many of you are involved in these areas. Please subscribe to that tender. And in Q4, we foresee that the study will be completed, guidelines would be approved, and we will also ensure that there's a full alignment with other processes that are taking place, especially study type activities, our design activities, component sourcing. I already mentioned our willingness to engage with the providers of different innovative alternative product lists. Commercialization, of course, a lot of effort will be diverted at making sure that we have not only a digitally connected, but a commercialized digitally connected infrastructure. And finally, beyond this, we will continue to engage with all of the institutions on the research frontier, especially Shift to Rail, to follow and benchmark innovations as we go forward. We will engage with the startup community. We seek out disruptive technologies. And of course, we will maintain a close linkage also with Baltic and international research institutions and our users. Thank you very much.